Let's play about 10 or 15 verses, Surya, relevant to what we will be covering in the class. But once you play the whole thing, so we can all listen to the text once.
Swamiji, I played the first 20 verses.
Yeah, I know. Today you played the first 20 verses, but
yeah,
we generally stick with maybe 10 or 15 verses each class.
Yeah, okay.
But once you play the whole thing, maybe next class.
Yeah.
Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyakrito Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Yomavat Vyapta Dehaye Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavarthaye Shuddha Jnanaika Murtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaye Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Shankaram. That Shankara, who is the abode of Shruti, Smriti and Purana. While the Shruti has the entire truth embedded in it, in the various Mahavakya, and we look forward looking at the Shruti to see and understand those Mahavakya. This Mahavakya has to be understood with Shraddha and with very sharp logic. You cannot understand what the Shruti says even if one has total Shraddha unless the thinking capacity has been sharpened adequately. It is not necessarily the same kind of sharpness that you require for understanding Laukika Vishaya. This is a certain amount of subtle sharpness. We have seen in Kathopanishad it says, you need a buddhi which is sharper than the edge of a razor blade. That kind of fine sharpness is required. So it is not just Shraddha. Shraddha is important. You can't do without Shraddha. Shraddha is important because Shruti says so many things which contradict whatever we think we know. Someone has to have Shraddha. Shruti makes a statement, there is no difference between Ishvara and you. Very difficult to accept. And yet, because we have Shraddha, we inquire further into it. And to inquire further into it, not only does the brain, the buddhi have to be very sharp, it has also got to be open, like a sharp, scientific mind. You cannot latch on something and say, this is mine, and I will not listen to anything else. You can't do that kind of thinking and expect to understand.
Swamiji,
Yes.
Swamiji, your video is getting stuck. Maybe you can turn off the video.
Yeah, we might have to do that. Because we still haven't got our internet sorted out. I still have a problem. I'll remove,
Yes.
I'll go off video. Therefore, it is not a very easy exercise to understand what the Shruti is trying to tell us, what the vivaksha of the Shruti is. So we start with a certain Shraddha and then back it up with logic and analysis, vichara. To do that, one option we have is, of course, continue to do Shravanam of the Shastra and continue to do contemplation of what we've heard, on what we've heard, analyze it, look at differences and see where and how we can reconcile those differences. To help us in this process, we have various smritis and Puranas. All the Puranas and smritis typically take up an aspect of what the Shruti says and explain it in means which are easier to understand. Through stories, through illustrations. But in many of those, you will also find the same Mahavakya. Jiveshvara Aikyam. Therefore, when we call Shankaracharya the Smriti and Purana, you can see that he has he got it all completely under his control. And he's able to extract from there the truth and present it to us in a fashion which becomes somewhat easier. If you look at Shankaracharya's Bhashyam for anything, whether it's the Gita or the Upanishads or even Brahma Sutra or something like Vishnu Sahasranamam, you will find he quotes Shruti, Smriti, and Purana in support of his arguments. But the basis is the Shruti. So, Shruti, Smriti, Purananam, Alayam. It is not just that he is the abode of everything. It is not that they all come and rest with him at the end of that. He is also Karunalayam. He is a very center for Karuna, compassion. And with that compassion, he represents those for us to understand. Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram. He does it for the benefit of the lokas, of people in the loka. Shankaram. In fact, the very name Shankaram comes from Shankaroti. Mangalam Karoti. Kalyanam Karoti iti Shankaram. Not to be confused with Sankaram. See how important the pronunciation becomes. You have seen Sankaram in Bhagavad Gita first chapter. Sankaram is mixture. Adulteration, if you want. Shankaram is Mangalakaram. Shankaram, Loka Shankaram. When such a person creates another grantha, there is a very strong purpose behind it. That grantha is only an extract from Shastra. But it will take a focused view and approach which will make it possible for us to do analysis. With a sharp mind, one can read this and the logic flows smoothly. So such grantha, created by anybody who is steeped in Shastra, as well as in Puranas and Smriti, is called prakarana grantha. To get the status of a prakarana grantha, first and foremost, it must have been written by somebody who is totally absorbed in the Shruti, Smriti and Purana. If somebody, today you get a lot of books in the shelves. Go to the bookshop, you will get a lot of books on modern Vedanta. You read a little bit, you study a little bit, you become a scholar in Sanskrit, and then you write books. They are not prakarana. Who can write prakarana grantha? People like Shankaracharya. People like Vidya Muni. And people like Bharati Tirtha, Vidyaranya Muni's guru. There are several such people, Anandagiri and others, who write various texts based on the Shruti. They also write a different kind of text called Bhashyam. Bhashyam is a commentary. A difference between a prakarana grantha and Bhashyam is that the Bhashyam is written on a particular text where every word and every sentence is analyzed and meanings are explained. That is the Bhashyam, commentary. In fact, if you read Shankaracharya's Bhashyam, as we will do one of these days, I'm sure, he takes a word and explains it. He takes a samasa and explains it. And occasionally he will present counter arguments and refute them. Then there are other texts people write, or tika, or karika, which are typically written on the Bhashyam, explaining it further. But a prakarana grantha is a new text. A new text based on Shruti only, but picking up a specific aspect and an approach to help us understand the logic behind it. One of the most famous is Panchadashi. We have done a few chapters of that. Vidyaranya Muni, who at one time was the Acharya at Sringeri, has written 15 chapters, each chapter picking up one aspect. Panchabhuta Viveka, Panchakosha Viveka, and expanding on that logically, showing how to understand it. Shankaracharya, many texts are attributed to Shankaracharya also. Viveka Chudamani, Bhajagovindam, Atmabodha, and many others. There is no authentic source to find out if it, who it was written by in many cases. Scholars argue and disagree. Even Bhajagovindam, there is a school of thought which says the first few verses were written by Shankaracharya himself, and there's a little story attached to it. And the further verses were written by his Shishya. We can neither authenticate it nor dismiss it. Similarly, this text called Dṛg-dṛśya-viveka, a prakarana grantha, is often attributed to Shankaracharya. Sometimes it's attributed to Panchadashikara. Sometimes to his guru. There are different opinions on this. Swami Dayananda Saraswati mentions in one of the classes that it probably can be attributed to Panchadashikara, Vidyaranya. But we don't know. Whoever it is who has created this, obviously is a person who satisfies the conditions we talked about. Steeped in the Shruti, probably a jnani himself, and has tried to recreate this one aspect which we will talk about and present it to us in a form where logic immediately falls into its slot. It becomes easy to understand. Dṛg-dṛśya. I remember in the class, Swami G said, we start by saying, there are two things in the world. And then I said, no. I am not a thing. English language has certain limitations on this. In Sanskritam, we use the word dvau padarthau. Padartha. pada and its artha. Word and its meaning. We can divide the entire known Jagat in many ways in two parts. You can say I and non-I. One part is I, everything else is non-I. We can also say living and non-living things. And many other ways you can divide it. Here, it talks about there being two, for want of a better word, categories. Dṛg and Dṛśya. The Vak and Artha. Some of you may know this prayer. Vagatta sampraktau Vagatta pratipattaye. Kalidasas. Va and his Artha. That is all there is in the Jagat. Other way of classifying is there is only subject, seer, knower, and object. Dṛg and Dṛśya. Starting with that approach of understanding what can be classified as Dṛg in this Jagat and what can be classified as Dṛśya. I said you can start with saying I and non-I. So one way of doing it is say, I am subject. Everything else is object. The authorship, as I said, Bharati Tirtha. Bharati Tirtha is the current Acharya or the previous Acharya. Brahmananda Bharati. Brahmananda Bharati was a teacher of Vidya. All these prakarana granthas will take a logical approach. So this text taken this logical approach of saying what is a Dṛg and what is a Dṛśya. You can see that how it's approaching it. Everything else here is an object of perception. Dṛśya literally means sight. But any perception, the same logic holds. Anything that is seen cannot be I, cannot be the subject. Anything that is perceived cannot be the subject I. Anything that is seen keeps changing all the time. You cannot have the subject changing all the time. But Swami G, there are so many subjects. I see you, therefore for me you're the object. You see me, therefore for you I am the object, you are the subject. Ultimately, it has to break down into only one subject. You cannot have many subjects. nor can you have varying subjects. Anything that varies cannot be subject. There are multiple versions of the subject. So taking this only one approach, one method for understanding the truth, what can be classified as drishya, that which is seen, that which is perceived. That which is perceived keeps changing. That which is perceived depends upon its existence on the perceiver. And that which is perceived, being dependent reality, is not really real. It is unreally real, if you want. Which again is immediate contradiction to what we believe. We say this is true because I see it. Even a court of law will accept it. A witness stands there in the court of law and says, I saw a blue Ford car hitting that fellow and driving away. Court of law will accept it as real. From the perspective of the Laukika Vyavahara, it is real. But when seen from the Paramarthika perspective, from the perspective of the subject, one can say, I see it and therefore it is not real. One aspect we say, I see it, therefore it is real. In another aspect, I say, I see it, therefore it is not real. Drishta nashta. Because I see it is not real. We can work it back and therefore say, what is real? With respect to what I see, my sight is real. Only one sight. My eyes are real. Everything else is seen and therefore is drishya, object. My eyes are real. Same thing holds for my ears, my nose, etc. Within that framework, what my eyes see are drishya, my ears hear are drishya, and eyes and ears are drik, seer or hearer. So this text starts with a simple verse. Rupam drishyam. Rupam is what? Form. Form includes color. So with respect to eyes, the rupam, the color and form you see, are objects, drishya, object of sight. Rupam drishyam, lochanam drik. My eyes are drik. Okay, very good. Therefore, my eyes are real. Within that only. Because tad drishyam driktu manasam. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, touch. None of these operate on their own. they have to be backed by the mind. Without the mind backing them, they have no room. They are inert. Jada. Therefore, it says, as far as the mind is concerned, each of these is also drishya. Lochanam tad. Lochanam, here tad means lochanam. Drishyam. What is the drik for that? Manas. Drik to manasam. In Shastra, they will generally use manas and buddhi interchangeably as words, meaning antakarana. Is this manas the ultimate drik then? Drishyadhi vrittayas sakshi. Dihi is buddhi. Interchangeably used with the word manas. Also becomes drishya. For whom? For the sakshi. Sakshi is the atma, without which that manas cannot operate. Manas is also jada. There is no sentience in anything. The sentience that we see is borrowed sentience, reflected sentience, reflected intelligence, reflected consciousness, all borrowed from Sakshi. You can keep going back. This also becomes Drishya. Something else becomes Drik. This also becomes Drishya. Something else becomes Drik for that. Where does it stop? In the only consciousness. Ekameva Advitiyas consciousness. Sakshi. Something that will never become Drishya. Never become an object, which cannot be objectified. And if it cannot be objectified, what is it then? The subject. And the subject is I. What a simple way of logically arriving at this. Drigeva natu drishyate. Never becomes drishya. Sounds very logical, Swami G, but I still find it difficult to digest because my conception that the body, mind, sense complex, which includes all my eyes, ears, nose, everything, I am not those. Because they always become drishya. They are subject to change. They are subject to the shadvikara. Then suddenly reconcile to this one verse which which logically dashes all our preconceived notions. Drigeva natu drishyate. There is no drishya for this. There is no drik for this. There is no other subject to validate this. Who is going to validate I? If somebody has to validate I, then that becomes the subject. That Drigeva natu drishyate. You stop this whole bombshell in one verse. That's how they start. It's like a pratignya. Every text often starts with this pratignya, saying, this is what I'm going to explain to you. So in the next several verses, he will take up this and detail it out. Because the mind is still working on this, saying, how can that be? How can that be? So we'll bring it out by explaining this in the other flow. Our forms and colors, which we started the whole thing with, Rupam, has varieties. It is not a single thing. We have the Vibgyor colors. Not only do we have the Vibgyor colors, we become finer and finer in separating the shades. So much so that paint companies will now advertise in Mera wala pink. That is not mine. That's also pink. So many varieties. So much so that paint companies now do not have a set colors. You pick the color, they will mix it for you right then and there. Amazing. So many colors. And so many forms. I see all of them. The entire variety, I see. Neela, Pita, Sthula, Sukshma, Hrisva, Dīrghādi, Vedataha. Neela, Pita, he's taken two colors only. But you have infinite colors. Vibgyor has only 7. Variety of colors. Then there are gross and small and big, gross and subtle. Variety of forms. Even those words are relative. Like I said, in colors, we can see the relativity in colors by looking at individual choices. But even small, big, those are relative. Near, far is relative. Seen from the perspective of a normal dosa, the giant dosa somebody made in Chennai is big. But seen from another perspective, let us say the mega kitchen cooking that is done for 1 lakh people by people like Akshay, that big dosa is small. Relative. But so many variations. Nila Pita Sthula Sukshma Krisva Dirghadi Bhedataha. So many varieties of Rupa. All of them are recognized by what? By the Dṛg-dṛśya-viveka. And they also keep changing. We painted some signboards here for coming to Arshavidyalaya. When you originally painted, they were bright yellow. Today, if you drive by, you'll find there's a pale yellow. Change. Forms change, colors change, rupa changes. They're all subject to time. But I see all of them. And I see the differences. The same eyes see that the signboard was deep yellow at one time, and today when I drive past, it is pale yellow. So not only so much variety, but constantly changing variety of rupa. All of which the Dṛk for them, which is Lochanam, is able to see. They are called Dṛśya because there are so many of them and they're all constantly changing. Therefore, they are Dṛśya. And they're all accessible by one Dṛk. All of them are seen by this one eye, Lochanam. Therefore, that Lochanam is called Dṛk. Nana vidhani rupani pashye lochanam ekadha. All forms appear different, various, because of color differences, size differences, distance differences, gross and subtle differences, big and small differences. The eye which sees them all is the same. Ekadha. The same thing holds for everything else. The ears hear a variety of sounds. Some pleasant, some not so pleasant. You can hear the elephant trumpeting and you know there's an elephant there. You can hear a bulldozer working and you know there's a bulldozer working. Or some other unpleasant sounds like people who do that deep well digging. Not so nice sounds. Or your mixie running in the kitchen. What comes out of it in the form of chutney later is very nice, but the sound is not nice. Variety of sounds. Variety of smells. Nice smell of bhaji being fried, so you can trace it and go to the fellow who is making the bhaji. Or horrible smell of molasses, which you want to run away from. Or these roadside fellows cooking meat. Variety of smells, variety of tastes, variety of touch. Feather touch, rough touch, silky touch, velvety touch. A slight breeze touching you. Every Dṛśya for that Dṛk, which is only one, which sees all of them, has a variety, and a variety that keeps changing. So these, on account of distinctions, there are many, varied and changing. All the divisions. Therefore, he started by saying, Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Dṛk. Then what about that Dṛk, which we thought was one, which is seeing so many forms, so many varieties? I is I. Is it? He says, I is also changeable. I also has a variety. Andyamandya patutveshu netra dharmeshu chaikada sankalpa en manaha sotratvad yojyatamidam. Eye has blindness. We can say this fellow is blind. Dullness, sharpness. She is able to thread that needle, very fine needle, and therefore we say very sharp eye. With age, the sharpness changes to a dull eye. With cataract, sharp-eyed, dull-eyed. These are all characteristics of the eye. They keep changing. There's a variety there also. That too keeps changing. If we accept this definition that anything which has a variety and therefore cannot be called Dṛk, anything that keeps changing, therefore cannot be called the subject. Recognize these differences. There has to be Dṛk, which can see these differences, which can see these changes. There is a single mind. That recognizes this sankalpayenam, sankalpayen manaha. That manaha which recognizes the changes. Not only to the eyes. The mind has to be behind every indriya. It recognizes deafness, ability to hear wider range of sound, and all this keeps changing again. The same set of ears, which was Dṛk for the sound, as we grow older, is subject to change. And Shrotra Tvag Ādau. Like that, it is true of ears, skin, touch. Same thing applies. Yojyatam. Same logic applies to all of these. We started by saying those are Dṛk, but they cannot be Dṛk because there is variety there. They cannot be Dṛk because they are constantly changing. Who knows this change? Who connects? What locates this change? Manas. So that single thing, manas, ekadha, is able to see all these varieties. And therefore, when that drik, which is lochanam, which was drik at one time, has now become drshya when you have manas as the drik. Without that manas, there is no lochanam. It is, like I said, jada. No ears, no nose. None of them can function. Therefore, for them, in the context of this we're talking about, manas becomes the drik and lochanam, shrotradi become drshya, become objects. Therefore, can we say the manas is the ultimate drik? If manas is the ultimate drik, then I can conclude that manas is I. My mind is I. Very contradictory statement I made just now. My mind is I. How can anything be I? What happens when a person is in deep sleep? Mind is not available. Mind has become unmanifest. In the waking state, the physical body is manifest. The sukshma sharira in the form of antakaranani is manifest and interacts with the world. When one goes into a dream state, the physical body becomes unmanifest. But the sukshma sharira continues to work, manas continues to work, and projects the entire pancham, entire world of dreams, in which there are sthula, sukshma, everything. But what happens when one is in deep sleep? Even the antakaranani become unmanifest. What is manifest? Karana sharira. One antakarana remains active, prana. You know, the antakarana includes the 5 jnanendriyas, 5 karmendriyas, manas, buddhi, everything. And prana. Prana remains active. That is only because we have to get up the next morning. Our prarabdha is not yet completed. Sharira has to be active. Go through all the experiences of prarabdha, our karma phala. And that's possible only when prana is active, only for that reason. Otherwise, in deep sleep, everything is unmanifest. Not available. Does that mean I become unmanifest? If manas were I, what will happen in deep sleep? I disappear. Hey, you don't disappear ever. Because the next morning you get up. And sometimes one says, and wish one can say that all the time, but some days we say, I slept very well. Are you still there? I was there. Are you there? I slept very well. So manas also cannot be the I. Then what happens? In the first sloka itself is made very clear. Manas also becomes drishya. And how do you say manas becomes drishya? Because manas also varies. And how does manas vary? We will look at it in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.